Even if you were unaware of her name, you had undoubtedly seen her face numerous times. Everywhere you looked, Kathleen Freeman was. She was a fixture on sitcoms, a comic in comedies, and a voice actor for cartoons. Even though she was on screen for a little moment, her presence was enough to make you pay attention. Whether she was the annoying neighbor, the grumpy teacher, or the legendary cleaner, she stole the show every time. The Beverly Hillbillies and the Blues Brothers were only two of her many quick film appearances. The news stopped mentioning her. If someone is so ubiquitous in American cinema and television, how does it happen that they fade from view? Why are so few people aware of the details surrounding her last chapter? Freeman, it turns out, had a secret. I think I counted more than one. Hollywood was never prepared to embrace the intensely private woman behind the sharp delivery and booming laugh. She spent her life guarding her work. To the very end, she toiled away, certain that no one would witness her anguish. She exited the stage with the same grace and silence with which she had lived her life. However, the account of her life? That is hardly a peaceful affair. It has been waiting far too long for the spotlight, and it is complex, tragic, and multifaceted. Beginning with her enigmatic private life and ending with a surprising twist. The events surrounding Kathleen Freeman's case will render you completely mute. It was on stage that Kathleen Freeman first stole scenes, before snatching them in Hollywood. Vaudeville was Freeman's entry point into the entertainment industry after his 1923 Chicago birth. As soon as Kathleen could walk, she was thrust into the limelight thanks to her parents, who were performers. In her family's comedic routines and musical performances, she went on tour, researching both timing and performance. The kind that converted an average moment into something unforgettable. Subsequently, she decided to pursue classical piano at UC Los Angeles. However, her true calling did not lie along that meticulously cultivated musical trajectory. The actual stage drew her in with its antics, characters, and humor. Although casting directors began to take notice of her in the 1950s, her film debut was in the 1940s. Gifts were rare for Freeman. Even in a scene starring 5 A-listers, she would be the one people remembered. Nosy neighbors, housekeepers, and secretaries would go to her for her harsh voice, rubbery facial gestures, and accurate comedic skills. Her impact was enormous, despite the modest roles. She had cameo appearances in numerous films, including The Blues Brothers as a strict nurse, a nosy housekeeper in The Fly, and an interferencist in The Nutty Professor. Despite having little screen time, Freeman managed to captivate and entertain the crowd. The downside was the expense of being seen. Hollywood viewed her as dependable, humorous, and lacking in depth. Roles with emotional depth or narrative clout were uncommon for her, and she frequently fell victim to typecasting. She was able to find a niche in the industry, but it was limited. Regardless, she persisted. What was given to Freeman, she exalted. She had the ability to put a smile on even the most grumpy faces. The directors adored her because of her charisma, timing, and ability to elevate even the most underwhelming moment. Close friends, though, saw the cost. In his comedic moments, Freeman would play the role of Hollywood's favorite crank. She was aware that the repetition was wearing thin, but she still had more to offer. Little did anybody know that the most vulnerable aspect of her, the one that remained hidden from casting agents, would remain hidden for far longer than anyone had anticipated. Kathleen Freeman was an established character actress when she met Lucille Ball. Nonetheless, her collaboration with the strong woman in television thrust her into a more prominent spotlight and into a subtly complex professional relationship that would define her career. Freeman initially piqued Ball's interest in the late 1950s. She possessed the traits that Ball greatly valued, including a sharp delivery and natural comedic instincts. Freeman was an integral part of Ball's strategy to build her empire, which she used to break into a male-dominated business. After her many appearances on I Love Lucy, she became a familiar figure on Here's Lucy and The Lucy Show. Their on-screen chemistry was palpable. Characters depicted by Freeman tended to be hard-nosed, suspicious, or stubborn, who stood up to Lucy's antics, and the audience adored it. However, there were times when things were less than ideal behind the scenes. It was said that Lucille Ball was very picky and demanding. She wanted her actors to respect her preference for order and structure. Freeman was well known for her forthrightness, yet she was just as professional. Members of the crew said that although they respected one another, tensions were regular. Freeman was unflattering. She stayed out of the Hollywood snitch game. Sometimes, that streak of independence collided with Ball's insistence on micromanaging every aspect. Ball continued to bring her back, though. We couldn't leave out Freeman because he was that good. Even a lackluster scenario may be given life by her. Still, Freeman started to sense the boundaries as time went on. She was consistently exploited without ever receiving the recognition she deserved. Publicly, she never voiced her dissatisfaction. But her pals later revealed that she frequently felt unappreciated and used as a tool. Freeman, despite making direct contributions to Ball's success, was always overshadowed by it, leaving him to build his own career as an entertainment star. Potential, not ego, was Freeman's biggest source of frustration. Parts that had heart and substance were what she sought. The scripts kept giving her the same overdramatic, humorous, one-note ladies, though, whenever she went back. Because she enjoyed her work so much, she continued to show up and deliver. The lack of affirmation on her value, however, became more apparent with each visit. She remained concealed, patiently awaiting her greatest desire, the side of herself that the business had never laid eyes on. Despite spending over 50 years on screen, Kathleen Freeman's private life received surprisingly little attention. On TV, she was fearless and outspoken, but in real life, she kept to herself. She was never wed. Her dating status was never discussed in public by her. She was also skilled at using humor and strategic shifts to deflect interviewers' attempts at asking her personal questions. However, Helen Ramsey's name remained a specter throughout her life. Not many people knew Helen. Although she did not work in the profession, she lived with Freeman for many years. And a life, as my friends would have it. Many thought they were working together. Companions was another name for them. According to Freeman, he never said. Actually, she remained silent the entire time. The two women were roommates and often went on adventures together, as they shielded their relationship from prying eyes. Silence like that was normal and frequently required in mid-century Hollywood. The studios had a stranglehold on the image. The ideal actor was someone who could be viewed as approachable, neat, and most importantly, conventional. A career could be derailed by anything that went against the grain of popular opinion. The risk of being truthful was probably clear to Freeman, a woman who had previously been typecast and constrained by the system. Thus, she safeguarded what was important. Quiet, shared time behind the scenes instead of red carpets, interviews, and statements. That may be sad to some, but it's an act of quiet courage to others. Without justification or remorse, she loved who she loved. No one was watching her throughout that period of her life. There was still no bombshell interview, hidden diary, or tell-all published after her death. Protecting her privacy was important to Freeman. She spoke volumes in that moment of stillness. Everything did not need to be made public. Some things could have been kept. A lot of actresses, like her, buried their true selves, not because they were ashamed, but because they needed to. She fashioned a sanctuary where she could be herself, although in relative seclusion. She made her own rules in a field where conformity was common. However, there remained an area where Freeman could always be herself. There she could be fearless, outspoken, and unabashed. You won't find that in Hollywood. She arrived upon the stage late in life but dominated it. Most actors her age would have subtly retired from the limelight after decades of playing the lead in films and TV shows. The majority of performers weren't Kathleen Freeman, though. Despite Hollywood's slowdown, which included fewer roles and even fewer that were innovative, she refused to retire. Her attention shifted to the stage instead. By doing so, she surprised everyone by reviving her career. It was the late 1990s, and Freeman was already well into her 70s. At a time when most actresses were either fired or given supporting parts like grandmas or caregivers, Freeman strode onto a Broadway theater and commanded attention. He was presented with it. She was fearless, brassy, and iconic in her part in the smash musical The Full Monty. In her role as the snarky, tough-talking rehearsal pianist Jeanette Burmeister, Freeman commanded attention in every scene she was in. Her timing, edge, and voice were perfect for the part. The persona seemed tailor-made for her spirit as much as her type. The crowd laughed uncontrollably. Her performance was lauded by critics. She also received a Tony Award nomination that year for her work in a musical. In the year 1978. A culmination of decades of underappreciated parts and unrecognized genius, it was a defining point in her career. Freeman remained just as ferocious behind the scenes. Her other actors said she was energetic, perceptive, and courageous, like lightning in a bottle. She kept everyone on their toes with her self-deprecating humor and her tendency to taunt her co-stars. Even at almost 80 years old, she maintained a high level of professionalism. She was always completely prepared for every rehearsal, never missed a cue, and never messed up a cue. She accomplished all this while concealing a horrible secret. The fact that Freeman was diagnosed with lung cancer while filming was a secret that few people knew about at the time. Even her closest co-workers were kept in the dark about the news, as she adamantly wanted to keep the show going. By leaving, she would be giving up not only the part, but also the culmination of her career. And that was something she would not stand for. Having the ability to walk, talk, and make people laugh is all that matters, she reportedly told a co-star. Furthermore, she accomplished it. Even though he was exhausted, in pain, and knew his time was running out, Freeman continued to give incredible performances night after night. The stage was more than simply a job for her. It felt like home. She felt safe enough to be herself there, free from judgment about her age, volume, or uniqueness. There she was finally acknowledged and feted for who she really was. Each night, meanwhile, her health deteriorated despite the rousing acclaim. It happened more quickly than everyone had anticipated as the final curtain fell. Kathleen Freeman's last leaving took almost everyone by surprise, especially considering her career was built on dramatic exits. Behind the scenes, her body was battling a terrible illness, but her stage presence was unwavering. The house was in fits of laughter when she showed up, hit her notes, and delivered her lines with conviction and perfection. No one witnessing her perform the full Monty could have suspected that she was in pain night after night. That was her preferred way. It was not just secretive, but Freeman's lung cancer diagnosis was concealed as well. Even when she did tell certain close friends, she played down the significance. The subject of her pain remained taboo. Rejected the idea of letting it shape her last months. It was expected that she would continue to keep her sickness a secret, given that she had spent her whole life guarding her innermost thoughts and feelings. Feeling sorry for herself was not something she desired. She preferred that no one notice her. Work was what she desired. However, the cost became intolerable by August of 2001. She skipped a performance for the first time after her energy started to wane. Even when her closest friends and family suspected something was amiss, she ignored their concerns. A simple cold, she clarified. I intend to revisit this place. The stage was never the same for her. A resident of Woodland Hills, California's motion picture and television country house and hospital, Kathleen Freeman passed away on August 23, 2001. Her age was 78. The news of her passing spread like wildfire across the Hollywood and theater communities. Not because she was famous, but because in the places that mattered, she had become a legend in her own right. Her co-stars on Full Monty were taken aback. It was completely unknown to many of them that she had been ill. Later on, one of the actors spoke about how she gave their all without expecting anything in return. They mourned the passing of an icon who had shown them the meaning of unwavering commitment in addition to a talented actor. Not from national headlines or tabloids, but from fellow actors and directors, tributes flooded in. Together with the comedians who had collaborated with her for many years. Jerry Lewis allegedly sobbed upon hearing the news. Freeman had appeared in 11 of Lewis's films. Despite her role, she was more than just an accessory to his story. For the most hilarious of his moments, she had been the catalyst. Even among those in the know, Freeman's death was mostly unrecognized. Her decades-long career did not generate a media frenzy, in-depth retrospectives, or viral videos honoring her. Only those who realized how selflessly she had served others and how little she had ever received could truly mourn her quietly. It seemed like the kind of departure that Freeman would have liked. A low-key farewell following a long career in performance, no grand finale. Even in death, Freeman was being disregarded because her legacy, which many people failed to acknowledge, was far from over. After Kathleen Freeman passed away, the fame that she had fought so hard to achieve gradually faded away. The credits no longer included her name. Hollywood tributes hardly ever featured her visage. Documentaries or retrospective specials did not feature her. Lifetime achievement reels were not presented to her by any award programs. It seemed like the business had silently moved on and forgotten about her. However, Freeman's writings continued to resonate with audiences. Currently, too, reruns of classic TV series often feature her appearances. You might recognize her from her appearances in classic comedy, family films, and animated TV shows. Like a familiar voice calling from another room, her presence is warm, crisp, and slightly ridiculous. The kind of voice that sneaks up on you and stays with you long after you've paid attention to it. To be sure, her impact goes beyond her widespread fame. As an actor, Freeman embodies a whole generation of artists who dabbled in Hollywood but were underappreciated. Scenes would not have been able to come together without her. What made ordinary conversation into memorable moments? The timing, the enthusiasm, and the spark. If a joke landed, a punchline was effective, or a transition was seamless, it was all because of her. But the industry viewed her as disposable since she was not a leading lady, starlet, or headliner. The Hollywood tragedy lies in that very recollection. A lot of the time, it's nasty, showy, and selective. The regular folks who put in the time and effort to make the stars appear good. It is rare for their names to be remembered. There were several fantastic ones, but Kathleen Freeman was among the best. Because of her, we have to re-evaluate our heroes. Are the only people we remember the ones who had the most high-profile scandals, largest incomes, and most magazine covers? Alternately, should we also remember those who dedicated many years to providing us with entertainment? Who among us might have amused millions without ever amassing a fortune in the millions? Everyone who knew and worked with Freeman thought she was indispensable. She embodied the ideal performer to have on your roster. If the writing for a scene was about to fail, you could always count on her to salvage it. No one ever took the easy way out or came up late for her. She was the one who gave 110% every time. While nobody was looking. She may have left an even more impactful legacy because of that. Being famous was never her goal. Her only request was that she work hard. For half a century, she never missed a delivery, just turned up and got on with it. Even though Hollywood has likely forgotten about her, that is okay, we won't. One way to pay tribute to Kathleen Freeman and the countless other artists like her is to remember her, to truly remember her. Those who provide comic relief and play supporting roles. Those supporting actors who selflessly put their careers on the line, because the show would be severely lacking in star power if they weren't there. However, there is more to Freeman's story than mere contemplation. One more chapter remains, and that one shows how Hollywood never got her or what she gave up to keep trying. For the most part of her life, Kathleen Freeman followed orders. She did an excellent job of acting out the role, both virtually and in real life. She rarely asked for more, kept her private life under wraps, and gave the people what they wanted. But there was a reality behind that glossy exterior that Hollywood was never willing to confront and perhaps isn't prepared to do so now. For more than half a century, Freeman was indispensable to a field that seldom gave her the credit she deserved. She elevated Hollywood A-listers' confidence, carried scenes, and added more humor to screenplays than was warranted. However, her role was to remain unnoticed while being dependable, entertaining, and unseen. She sacrificed parts of herself in the process. Not because her connection with Helen Ramsey was meaningless, but because being honest may have cost her everything, she kept it hidden. It was still considered risky to be visibly different back then. As a result, Freeman followed suit. Even though the stillness was wearing her down, she maintained her silence. Just picture yourself doing that for many years. You loved someone deeply, but you never let them see it on display. You devoted yourself fully to your art, but you were never recognized by name. And you never complained because you knew that if you did, you might as well not exist. The protagonist in Freeman's story is many women. Every actor who toiled away in the shadows, every performer who had to live a double life to make ends meet, and every creative who was never accepted for who they really were are all celebrated here. But Freeman accomplished an extraordinary feat without acknowledgement. She consistently delivered. Reason being, she had faith in the project. Laughter was her religion. Plus, she was a firm believer in just turning up. Remember that woman in the background was anything but when you saw her in a rerun or an old picture. The success of the scene was down to her. The selfless woman who donated without expecting anything in return was Kathleen Freeman. Perhaps she has finally understood it now.